Picture this moment. You just landed at the airport after visiting family overseas. You're tired from the long flight, ready to go home, and you hand your green card to the customs officer with confidence. You've done this before, no problem. But then the officer pauses, looks at their screen, and asks you to follow them to a separate room. Your stomach drops. You start sweating. What's happening? Within minutes, you're surrounded by immigration officers asking questions you weren't prepared to answer. And suddenly, your green card, your job, your home, everything you've worked for in America is hanging by a thread. This isn't a scene from a movie. This is happening right now to green card holders across the United States. And the shocking truth is that having a green card doesn't guarantee you can't be deported. In 2026, the rules are tighter than ever. And if you don't know what can go wrong at the airport, you could be the next person fighting to keep your American dream alive. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. If you're new here, I create content that helps people navigate the confusing world of immigration, breaking down the legal jargon into real information that actually matters to your life. Today's topic is critical, and I mean that seriously. We're going to explore why lawful permanent residents are facing detention and deportation at airports, what specific things trigger these situations, and the exact steps you need to take to protect yourself before your next trip. This isn't fear-mongering. This is reality, and understanding these issues could literally save your immigration status. I'm going to walk you through real scenarios, explain what immigration officers are looking for, and give you actionable advice you can use today. So get comfortable, maybe grab a notepad, because you're going to want to remember what I'm about to share. Let's get started. The biggest myth floating around immigrant communities is this idea that once you get your green card, you're basically set for life unless you commit some terrible crime. Unfortunately, that's completely false. Your green card, officially called lawful permanent resident status, can absolutely be revoked, and one of the most common places this happens is when you're trying to re-enter the United States after traveling abroad. The reason is simple. Every single time you come back to America, even though you live here legally, you're technically applying for permission to enter the country. That moment at customs isn't just a formality. It's an inspection point where Customs and Border Protection has enormous power to examine your eligibility to remain a permanent resident. Let me explain what's really going on when you approach that customs counter. The officer isn't just checking that your green card is real. They're running your information through multiple databases that show your criminal history, your immigration history, how long you've been outside the United States, whether you've been flagged for any violations, and much more. All of this happens in seconds while you're standing there. If anything unusual pops up on their screen, you're getting pulled aside for additional questioning. And that's where things can go sideways fast. One of the biggest reasons green card holders get into trouble at airports is abandonment of permanent residence. Here's what you need to understand. When the U.S. government gave you that green card, there was an implicit agreement that you would actually live in the United States as your primary home, not visit occasionally, not spend a few months here and a few months somewhere else. Actually live here. Immigration law says that if you take a trip abroad that lasts more than 1 year, there's an automatic presumption that you abandon your permanent residence. But even trips shorter than a year can trigger problems if they're close to 6 months or longer. So what does this look like in practice? Let's say you went back to your home country to take care of an elderly parent and you stayed for 8 months. You come back to the U.S. airport and the officer starts asking questions. Where were you? Why were you gone so long? Where do you work? Do you have a home in the U.S.? Do you pay taxes? Where does your family live? These aren't casual questions. The officer is building a case in their mind about whether you truly live in America or whether you're just using your green card as a travel document to visit occasionally. If your answers suggest that your real life is happening somewhere else, that officer has the authority to refer you to what's called secondary inspection, where more senior officers will dig even deeper. They might ask to see proof of your U.S. residence, employment verification, tax returns, lease agreements, anything that shows you actually maintain a life here. What really gets people in trouble is that they don't have good answers or documentation ready. Maybe they gave up their apartment in the U.S. to save money while they were away. Maybe they quit their job before traveling. Maybe their spouse and kids stayed in another country. All of these things make it look like they abandoned their permanent residence, even if that wasn't their intention. And here's the harsh reality. If the immigration officer determines you abandoned your residence, they can start removal proceedings right there at the airport. You might be detained until a hearing, or you might be given a notice to appear in immigration court. Either way, you're now fighting to keep your green card instead of going home to your life. Criminal history is another massive issue that's catching green card holders off guard at airports. A lot of people think that if they were arrested or convicted of a crime and already served their punishment, that chapter of their life is closed. Wrong. There are two main categories immigration officers worry about. The first is crimes involving moral turpitude, which is this vague legal term that basically means crimes involving dishonesty, fraud, or intent to harm someone. This can include things like theft, fraud, assault, domestic violence, and many other offenses. The second category is aggravated felonies, which despite the name doesn't just mean serious violent crimes. Under immigration law, an aggravated felony can include things like drug trafficking, illegal entry after deportation, certain theft or burglary convictions, and even some relatively minor offenses if the sentence was long enough. Here's the part that shocks people. You might have gone to court, taken a plea deal, gotten probation or a reduced sentence, and walked away thinking everything was fine. But immigration judges don't look at what you were convicted of in criminal court. They look at what you actually did. So even if your criminal lawyer got you a great deal that kept you out of jail, you could still be deportable under immigration law. And you might not find this out until you're at the airport, trying to re-enter the United States, and an officer sees the red flag on your record. In 2026, the information sharing between law enforcement agencies and immigration enforcement is more sophisticated than ever. When you scan your green card or passport, the system instantly pulls up any arrests, convictions, warrants, or other criminal justice involvement. If there's anything concerning, you're going to secondary inspection immediately. The officers there will question you in detail about what happened. They'll look at police reports, court records, everything. And if they determine your conviction makes you deportable, you're not getting into the country. You'll be placed in removal proceedings and you'll need an immigration lawyer to fight your case. Fraud and misrepresentation is the third major category that causes airport detentions. If immigration officers suspect that you got your green card fraudulently or that you lied about anything material during your immigration process, they can take action against you. The most common example is marriage fraud. Maybe you got your green card through marriage to a U.S. citizen, but you got divorced shortly after getting the card, and now officers are questioning whether the marriage was real. Or maybe you got your green card through employment sponsorship, but you never actually worked for that company or you quit immediately after getting your card. These situations raise serious red flags. But fraud isn't just about how you got your green card. It's also about anything you say to immigration officers. If you lie on your customs declaration form about what you're bringing into the country, if you lie about where you've been or what you've been doing, if you misrepresent anything during questioning, that's considered fraud and it can be grounds for revoking your permanent residence. Immigration officers are trained to spot inconsistencies and they're very good at it. They might ask you the same question multiple ways to see if your story stays consistent. They might ask questions they already know the answers to just to test whether you'll tell the truth. So what actually goes down if you get detained at the airport? First, you'll be escorted to secondary inspection, which is a separate area away from the main customs hall. You'll sit there while officers review your file and decide what to do with you. This can take hours. You might miss connecting flights. You can't leave. You're stuck there while they investigate. Officers will question you extensively. They'll ask about your travel history, your residence, your employment, your family, your criminal history, if you have one, everything. They're looking for reasons to believe you shouldn't be admitted or that your green card should be revoked. If they find a serious issue, they have several options. They might offer you voluntary withdrawal of your application for admission, which means you agree to leave the U.S. without being formally removed. Some people take this option because they think it's better than deportation, but it's actually a complicated decision that can affect your future ability to return. The better option in many cases is to fight the case, but that means you might be detained or you'll be released with a notice to appear in immigration court. Either way, You're now in removal proceedings, which means you need a lawyer and you're fighting to keep your status. The key to avoiding all of this is preparation and understanding what puts you at risk. If you're a green card holder who travels internationally, you need to maintain clear, documented ties to the United States. Keep a permanent address here, even if you're traveling frequently. File your taxes every single year as a U.S. resident. Keep your job or business here. Have bank accounts, credit cards, property, anything that shows this is truly your home. Keep records of everything: utility bills, rent receipts, employment letters, because you might need to prove your residence at the airport. If you know you need to be outside the U.S. for an extended period, apply for a re-entry permit before you leave. This is a special travel document that protects your status if you'll be gone for up to 2 years. It shows immigration officers that you planned your absence and you intend to keep your permanent residence. If you have any criminal history at all, even something minor, talk to an immigration attorney before you travel internationally. Find out whether your conviction could cause problems and get advice on how to handle questions if they come up. Never assume that because you weren't deported immediately after your conviction that you're in the clear. Immigration consequences can come up years later, and absolutely never lie to immigration officers about anything. If they ask about criminal history, be honest. If they ask where you've been, tell the truth. If they ask about your residence or employment, give them accurate information. Lying will make everything worse. If you do find yourself in secondary inspection, remember you have rights. You have the right to remain silent beyond providing basic identification. You have the right to request an attorney, although actually speaking with one from the airport can be challenging. You don't have to sign documents without understanding what they mean. Don't let officers pressure you into signing away your rights because you're scared or confused. Stay calm, be respectful, answer questions honestly, but don't volunteer information beyond what's asked. And if you're being placed in removal proceedings, get an immigration lawyer immediately. The bottom line is this: green card holders are not citizens, and your status can be challenged and even revoked under certain circumstances. Airports are high-risk zones because that's where immigration officials have maximum authority to scrutinize your status. But if you maintain your permanent residence properly, understand what triggers problems, keep documentation of your U.S. ties, stay out of legal trouble, and know your rights, you can protect yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. I know this is heavy information, but it's absolutely essential if you're a green card holder or if you love someone who is. Immigration enforcement is real, and it's happening every single day at airports across America. The more you know, the better you can protect yourself and your family. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future immigration updates. Share this video with anyone you know who has a green card because this information could genuinely change their life. Leave your questions or thoughts in the comments below. I try to respond to as many as I can. And remember, staying informed is your best defense in the complicated world of immigration. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.